Do you know that saying, that 3 is a crowd? Well, I didn't want to be that number 3. I craved to simply fit in my environment and be everything that simply wasn't myself. Throughout my journey, I've constantly asked myself, when was society going to start following me? But through my journey, I've lost my true elements, my purpose, and my roots. Ladies and gentlemen, today I'm glad to say that I love myself and the nature that is my hair. African hair, the most misunderstood hair texture. It's amazing how it's the only hair texture that could defy the laws of gravity. Growing up instead of down. They're kinky locks that twist naturally by themselves and could be styled in many different ways. Surely the words and phrases that I've just stated about African hair make it seem glamorous, and I assure you it is. But for centuries, African hair has been looked down upon, and sadly, these stereotypes continue. Just judging by the elephant in the room, I cannot be the only one who has never heard the phrases like, your hair is nappy. You know, you look a bit unkempt. You should straighten it to look more presentable. These phrases originate from the early days of colonization. Prior to this, in Africa, a range of different tribes had many different hairstyles that reflected their culture. These old and rich traditions were meant to be passed down for generations to come. However, when slave trade occurred in Africa, many of these old and rich traditions were wiped out. From early as the 1930s in America, many black women were stripped of the beauty that is their hair, being forced to submerge themselves into the Western American look, being taught that straight is better, and the covering of their hair looked more presentable. In the state of Louisiana in 1786, black women had to cover their hair by law, being told that they must cover their hair to look more presentable. The lack of tools and resources to maintain their hair made it difficult for African Americans, to the extent of using butter to moisturize their hair. To one's luck, Madam C.J. Walker became the first African American to create hair products that will exfoliate and maintain the growth of black people's hair. You see, ladies and gentlemen, she's bridging the gap between African hair and the Western society. An example of someone who follows herself, not society. But I've noticed that we have fallen under the spell of following post-colonial trends. Many advertisements showcase the ways in which black women can treat their hair to look more westernized and civilized. But let us remember the civil rights movement in the 1960s in America. Many black women and men took to the streets of their hometowns, bringing the light and pride and ownership to African hair. Many might see this as just a movement. Many might see this as them just showing off their hair. However, I see power, I see acceptance, and I see pride. Ladies and gentlemen, I am not here to imply that I've always loved my hair and that I've always showed off my afro. Actually, it's far from that. I was born in London in the United Kingdom, and in my primary school, majority of the children were white children. In addition, my mother always used to braid my hair, you know, putting extensions and braids and clips. And to me, I felt beautiful. I was pretty. I mean, can you not see? And when I was at home, I felt absolutely beautiful. But when I went to school, this feeling quickly dissolved. Many students would ask to touch my hair and ask questions like, is that real? Are you allowed to have so many colors and patterns? Does it hurt when you sleep? This used to irritate me and without a doubt this broke my self-esteem. I remember going into secondary school and begging my mum to allow me to relax my hair. I wanted it so badly that she simply had to give in. And from that moment, I felt beautiful. I blended in with society. I was one of them. But this fantasy that I was living didn't last forever, as the damage was already done. My hair cut and my edges were uneven. You see, what the advertisements don't show is the bad side effects of using these products could have on your hair, such as possible hair loss or uneven edges. I remember as a child, I always used to play with white Barbie dolls. You know those Barbie dolls that have the long, straight blonde hair? But I distinctly remember going to a shop with my dad, and I noticed a black doll. You know, this doll had an afro. And instead of running to my dad and begging him to buy me this doll, I was terrified. I mean, can you blame me? This was the first time in my entire life I had ever seen a black doll. And to be sure, she looked just like me. I mean, I was absolutely terrified. This experience was almost embedded in my mind, which I later began to realize that I need to embrace my hair. But of course, my mother refused. She asked me, "How will you handle it, Lucille? What if it rains? What will you do then?" Questions I had no answer to. But knowing myself, I tend to ask a lot of questions. How come my parents don't know how to maintain African hair? I mean, black people have been on this earth for so long, surely someone must know. History and knowledge. I think that our knowledge has been robbed from us. We have been brainwashed to think that when our hair transforms into a massive puff, that is it, that we are messy. Well, I say no to this. Let's embrace the fact that our hair does this and love it. Let's love every twist, knot, and curl that is our hair. A prime example of someone who lives by this statement is my sister, Lupita Nyong'o. She went to the New York Met Gala in 2014, but many of the media outlets called her hairstyle rolled, including Vogue. But why is it rolled? Is it because it's a black woman showing off her natural hair? Is that your idea of bold? Well, I think it's simply beautiful, a representation of culture. Maya Angelou once said, "If you're always trying to be normal, you'll never know how amazing you can be." Through my experience, I've had to learn the beauty and the richness of my hair, from many nights of regret and tears to eventually loving it. I am so happy that with the help of social media, many black girls can look up to other black girls who embrace their natural hair. Our generation is moving upwards, and we must keep it that way. So, the next time society tells you to relax your hair, tell society, I don't need to relax my hair because I'm not stressed out. Thank you.